You're listening to The Last Thing I Wished I Said. I'm Linda Overman. The Last Thing I Wished I Said is a place to share that last conversation you wished you'd been able to have with a loved one, but were unable to. Each episode we talk to a different person who reveals their wished-for conversation with a loved one who they lost recently or long ago. Welcome to The Last Thing I Wished I Said. Today on The Last Thing I Wished I Said, I have the pleasure of interviewing a former student of mine, Professor Jessica Stewart. Jessica teaches English at the Glendale Community College here in Los Angeles. She's a graduate from Cal State University Northridge master's program. She was a teaching associate there as well. And Jessica also is a supervisory instructor for University of Texas at Austin.
I am. So I work with the On-Ramps program, formerly run by Dr. Connie Steele. And what I do is we work with students, high school students, across multiple school districts in Texas, and they take an asynchronous course in rhetoric. And we provide college-level feedback on their papers. The other thing that I do in my capacity as writing assessment specialist is I mentor and provide feedback on the work done by incoming writing assessment specialists. And I'm also part of the emergency grading team.
And Jessica does all this amazing work through the assistance of
JAWS, Jobs Access with Speech,
which is a software program for visually impaired, right? And every word, every letter is spoken, and I shudder to think that she gets to hear every single letter and word of the hundreds of essays she reads every semester.
Every sentence fragment, every poorly formatted quotation.
It's amazing. I have watched her, and she types so fast, and the words come so fast, and she just absorbs it all and is brilliant at the job. So Jessica continues to be an inspiration to those of us who love her, as well as her students. And you lost your sight fully as an adult. Is that right, Jessica?
Yeah, so I was 23 when it started to go, and I was 24 when it had finally gone.
And at the time, when your mother and her sister, I think you were telling us a little bit, we were talking about it earlier, so there was an accident, some kind of a car accident, right?
Yes, so this was Friday, July 2nd, so it was 4th of July weekend. Ironically enough, they were headed back to Aurora, in Illinois.
Illinois, okay.
So this is my family's hometown.
Right.
And, well, my maternal family's hometown. Mm-hmm. They were headed back for a funeral. So my grandfather's brother, Uncle Joe, had lost his wife, Laverne, who had been battling cancer for the last couple of months. And so she passed away. And so my mother, her oldest sister, Helen Franklin, and my Aunt Gloria were traveling back east to support my grandfather and to attend the funeral.
And you said there was you weren't sure, but it might have been something about fog or something they couldn't possibly see. Where was this occurred?
So they were on the I-40 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. My Aunt Helen was driving, and as you said, I'm not entirely sure how it happened. I do know that they rear-ended either a Mack truck or a semi or an 18-wheeler.
Oh God, poor things.
Yeah, and my mother and my Aunt Helen were killed instantly, but my Aunt Gloria did survive, which we're all grateful for.
Thank God, and she lives with you today, and
she does.
We're doing this interview in Jessica's office. She so kindly allowed me to come and do. Although now we don't have my cat walking across the desk like she would in my office, thankfully.
And my cats are scared to come anywhere near me.
So at the time, were you here in LA when you got the word? You said something about before that your brother had advised you of this terrible tragedy?
No, it was really weird that day. Okay. So we were living so you remember the other house?
Yes.
So we had just moved in there in March. So we hadn't been there. We hadn't been there half a year.
And this is Encino, California, is where we are now.
Yes. So we hadn't been there half a year, and I'd gone to the very last conversation that I had with her was on the phone, and we were talking about how I could orient myself to the neighborhood, because at that time I was still doing my own grocery shopping. This was way pre-COVID.
Right.
So I would go in there and I would ask for a courtesy worker, and they would walk with me for hours to do my grocery shopping.
Amazing. Wow.
And so we talked about how I would do that. And so I went to, and so they died. This was so sad. They died at 5:40 p.m. in New Mexico. So while I was doing my grocery shopping, they'd passed away.
Oh my gosh.
And so I got back, and my brother was there, and he was asking. So I was putting away the groceries, and we were cooking in preparation for the holiday.
Sure.
Because my Aunt Barbara and my godmother Geraldine were helping to take care of my younger sisters who were going to be attending summer school while my mother was away.
And your younger sisters are twin girls.
Yes.
And I still get them confused. They're identical, I guess.
Absolutely. And so I'm in the kitchen. I'm cooking. I forget. I was cooking my pasta salad.
You are an amazing cook, too. I have been there. She cooks like crazy. It's amazing. She knows where everything is.
It scares people.
It's amazing.
It does. But so I'm cooking, and my brother is asking me all these really weird questions, and it doesn't dawn on me until much later that he was asking these questions in the past tense. He's like, "Did Mom love me?" And I'm not one to mince words, and so I said, "Yeah, she did, but she may not have been happy with some of the choices that you made." I'm not knowing that he already knew what happened. So I finish cooking. I go on about my day, and then one of my younger sisters comes in and says that some people, some relatives who were estranged, were here. And the first thing that I do is I try to call my mom's cell phone.
Oh, God.
And I'm like, what are these people doing here? We moved, and we didn't tell them where we lived for a reason. We have nothing to do with these people. Why are they here? And I was calling her, and I was laughing, like, do you know that these people are here? Because I'm like, I knew that she would hit the roof.
Right. Oh, God.
She would hit the roof if she knew that they were anywhere, if they were driven past this house.
Oh, no.
And it didn't dawn, and again, it doesn't dawn on me, so they come in and get me.
Oh, dear.
They come in and get me, and we're sitting in and I knew.
You knew.
I'd had nightmares about this for years.
Yes, of course.
And and I remember giving my Aunt Helen, as they were leaving, because they left late that Wednesday night.
Right.
And I gave my Aunt Helen a huge hug.
Aw.
But didn't get a chance to do it with to hug my mom.
Aww.
And my Aunt Helen was kind of taken aback, because I'm not really the touchy-feely type of person. She was like, what is this? And so we're sitting in my mother's bedroom, and one of the relatives,
oh dear,
is explaining what's going on, and my godmother's sitting there, oh my God, are they dead? And they didn't make it, and I knew before they finished the sentence, and so my first instinct is to get up and walk out of the room.
Oh gosh.
I'm like, I'm not gonna have this emotional reaction in front of these people in particular.
Yes.
And I remember one of the relatives kept yanking me back.
To sit back down.
To stay in the room. To comfort me, and I'm just like,
you're like, get away from me.
Leave me alone. So I don't go into hysterics or anything like that. I just, because it's shocking. The first thing that I do is I call so they tell me that Helen had passed. Oh. So I call my Uncle Taurus, and they lived in Los Angeles, and they lived in a building where my grandmother used to live. Oh. They lived in that building for decades. So since I was 3 or 4, and so I called him and I talked to him, and I didn't believe until I heard he answered the phone, and he was in tears, and I'm like, okay, oh yeah, it has happened.
Oh my God.
And so that was it was terrible. And of course I haven't been blind all my life, and so I have all these images of car accidents from pop culture, and I'm just like, yeah, you know what?
And you has anyone ever described it to you, what happened?
So that's a funny story too. So I was taking a gender and women's studies class at Cal State Northridge, and our professor had a creative writer come in and speak to us, and she was talking about documentary poetry. So what I wanted, and so so this is Jennifer Ray Vernon, and I was looking up, I know that there had been a blurb about the accident, and so I had my professor look it up on her computer, and I'm sitting in this classroom full of people, and she lists this detail
Oh.
that I hadn't known about. And I'm sitting in class and it's a gut punch. I'm like,
Oh my
I
gosh.
did not need that information.
Wow.
And then before that, I'd had those same relatives say something really, really spiteful.
Oh dear.
Because they wanted to be spiteful and mean-spirited and let me know other details.
Right.
There are things that I don't know and that I don't want to know,
Right.
and that I'll never be ready to hear even 30, 40 years from now.
Absolutely.
So things have slipped. People have been irresponsible or just downright mean. But yeah, I know I have very few details about what happened.
And it's probably it's best that you do.
Yeah.
It's probably better.
Yeah.
Yes. Because like you said, your imagination has taken you into a whole other direction, which is often the case.
Yeah.
You know, and understandable. So tell us a little bit about your mom, where she was raised, you know, where did she go to school? How did she meet your dad?
So my mother was born in Louisville, Kentucky. So my maternal family is based in Aurora, Illinois. And so I can only guess that they must have been visiting relatives at the time. They lived in Aurora for the first couple years of my mother's life. My mother's the youngest of 5 girls.
Oh wow.
And then they moved to Los Angeles when my mother was still very young.
Did she go to high school here?
She went to high school here, so she went to manual arts, and she also attended Fauché. And then she, like me, was a troublemaker, so she actually got booted out of I'm not sure if it was manual arts or Fauché, but she ended up so my grandmother, you're going to live with your father. Because they divorced. Like, you are going to live with your father. And so she actually graduated from Ganesha High School.
Where is that?
In Pomona, California.
Right. Okay. And was she able to go on to university, or did she have to go right into the workforce?
So she started working, and she was making, at that time was huge money at 18.
What are you doing?
So she was working at Life Alert.
Oh gosh,
And then,
Life Alert, yes.
Yeah, so she's working at Life Alert. And I think she was working a couple of other jobs. The one that I know for sure was Life Alert. And she had bought her own car, had her own apartment.
She met your father at Life Alert, right?
No, they were neighborhood pals. So
right.
so they were all there was a crew that ran together. So everybody attended different schools, but they all lived in the neighborhood.
Okay.
In that part of LA.
Where was that?
So this was LA, probably somewhere in South Central.
Okay, but they all hung together.
Yeah, so everybody hung together.
And what was the circumstances of their romance? I know we talked about it. It was kind of very charming, actually.
So they were friends, and they became more. I know that. So I don't know a whole bunch about their courtship. I do know that one of their favorite things to do was to like they played competitive Pac-Man. At 7-Eleven. So this is back when 7-Eleven actually, like, when they had, like, the mini arcades.
Yes.
And so they would stay there until 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, trading insults and competing to see who could get the higher score with Pac-Man, Galaga, and all those other 1980s.
Oh, yeah. Pac-Man was, I can remember just being addicted to that. Yes. I love that they fell in love over Pac-Man. That's really wonderful.
It was really cute.
So, did you come out of that experience quickly? Or were you born right away?
I was born in 1984.
And then who came after you?
And then my brother, and then my youngest sisters.
And so, and these are twin girls who were so many minutes apart, right?
Yeah. So Brittany was first. So she was born 1 minute after Brianna, and she lets her know that often.
And just so to tell our listening audience, Brittany. Is it Brittany or Brianna? Who is the one that actually is officially your assistant?
So my sister Brianna works with me, and she is one of the most tireless, long-suffering supports.
She's wonderful. She's kind of like your, if you were a movie star, she'd be your highly paid assistant.
Absolutely, and my Aunt Barbara has been. Everybody's been really great.
And your Aunt Barbara, I used to see all the time because she would pick you up at Cal State Northridge
exactly.
after
And
class.
my Aunt Gloria helps me with all the tech. So anytime this computer breaks down,
your Aunt Gloria comes right in there. So
absolutely, and so
you're blessed with quite a support staff.
Yes, I am.
And so tell us a little bit about when your mother realized. How old was your mom when you were born? You said she was young.
She was 24,
and she ended up being a single parent after a while. Did she not?
Yeah.
But when you were a little one, she realized that you had some visual impairment challenges. You were telling me.
Yeah, so there was visible hemorrhaging
Right.
in my right eye, and so she
Right.
took me to the eye doctor. And they said, and there were other things that she noticed, like things that I wasn't quite seeing. So there were other signs that sort of let her know that my vision wasn't quite right. So she took me to the doctor. Something that manifested when I was a toddler, because I had teachers, I'm told, at 4 months old. I don't know how you teach a 4-month-old, but apparently I did have teachers, and so it didn't show up then.
Yes.
It just became very apparent in, I guess I want to say, in my toddling years, so 2, 3, that there was something.
Was it that you were cognizant of blurriness when you were looking at something, or
don't remember.
What do you recall?
I don't remember. I remember, like, as long as I can remember, I've only had eyesight in one eye.
Okay.
I don't remember ever having eyesight in both eyes. I was 5 years old when my mother noticed that I had blood in my right eye, which is the one that I'm blind. I lost my sight in that right eye, so I've only been able to see out of my left eye for the longest time until I lost my vision at 23. Lost completely.
But nevertheless, you had a love for school. You had a love for education.
Oh, I read. My mother made sure that she read to us. There were books all over the place. There was plenty of TV and stuff like that. But the Discovery Channel, Sesame Street, PBS,
right?
Lots of the golden books. Like I had all the frivolities. I played with, and you know how I.
Yes.
So I had Barbies.
Yes.
I had the Barbies. I had the Easy Bake Oven. But reading, I was a huge reader, an avid reader. I don't think she was entirely happy with some of the reading choices that I made, because there was a lot of scary stuff.
Right.
But she gave me my first Judy Blume book.
Oh, yes.
And it wasn't one of the younger ones. So when I say younger ones, I'm talking about like...
Yes, the young adult ones.
Yeah, yeah. It was Summer Sisters.
Yes.
And Summer Sisters is... But I was old enough, so I was 14 when she gave me Summer Sisters. And... she just encouraged a lot of reading.
Well, that is evident.
Yeah.
I mean, when you came into my class, your level of rhetorical knowledge was mind-boggling. I'm just wondering now, your mother, we have to, in some way, we can't not think that your mother doesn't know how well you've done. In a way, if we think about on a larger scale, on a, however we want to say it, spiritual, aesthetic. But if you could have been there with your mom, or written her a letter, or said what you wished you could have said to her in those last moments, what do you think it would have been?
It's hard to say what I would have said to her at that moment.
But now looking back, what do you think?
Now looking back, I wish that I could tell her that I was graduating. Because as I said, I was at Glendale Community College for a very long time, so I wish I had an AA degree to show her.
Which you do have, and you wish she could see it and hold it in her hands.
Yeah. I would have preferred to write her now, because she has a grandchild.
That's right.
Yeah,
your brother has a child.
Yeah, and he has a child.
How old is this little one?
So Amari is about 3 or 4 months old, and he and his wife Amani were married on New Year's Day.
How lovely.
And
so she has a
she has a daughter-in-law and a grandson, and she would have spoiled. She loved babies.
So she would have really...
She would have spoiled that boy to death. She'd have been very proud of my sister, who is been out on her own for nearly 2 years now, and is working. Brittany.
Brittany moved to.
She moved to Nevada.
Right.
And so she
is self-sufficient.
Self-sufficient, working 2 jobs.
Gosh.
Holding down an apartment, and has held down the same job for 2 years, and before that had held down a job before she moved out there. So she'd be very, very pleased to see how responsible they'd both become.
Yes. And what do you think, like, if you had a chance to just thank her, what do you think you might have just wanted to thank her for? I know to some people I've talked to, and they've said, I want to thank my mother for, and I'm just curious, what do you think you would have wanted to thank her for the most?
thank you for not treating me like a disabled child.
Absolutely.
For not putting me on a shelf. One of the
Right.
things that she and I always talked about was, so a lot of my peers that I went to high school with had parents who did not teach them any practical skills. So it was because of her refusal to put me on a shelf and overprotect me, and that I'm able to dress myself and cook.
Yes.
Fry bacon, even after work with sharp knives after I'd lost my vision. I was able to travel independently, so I did lose a lot of my independence, but a lot of the things that you generally don't expect from somebody who's blind, somebody who's recently blind, because of course you go through all of the courses and you learn the life skills and everything like that.
Yes, of course.
But I would thank her for ensuring that I had all the basic life skills that I needed to survive in a world without vision. So she literally taught me how to survive in the dark.
And what's brilliant, I think your point is, she treated you just like her other children. You were not put on a shelf, as you said.
Absolutely not.
She didn't protect you, she encouraged you.
Exactly. I mean, there were certain things that we fought about. So I remember we were living in Reseda, and I wanted to walk to, and this is back when it was Ralph's and not Food for Less on Van Noen.
Yes.
I wanted to walk there on my own. And I think some of that was just, you're a girl overprotectiveness.
Right.
But some of that must have been, she was concerned.
Of course.
So she was concerned because I hadn't really learned formally how to cross the street yet, because I hadn't been through orientational mobility.
Right.
I actually didn't have that until junior high. But for the most part, no. I got to go outside and skin my knees, even, and so I have a bone disorder as well. So I would go outside and I'd break bones and sprain things, and so I got to have all of those painful but formative childhood experiences,
which any child would have playing on their own outside. I mean, that's just a typical experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. So she didn't treat me like a freak, and she didn't allow anybody else to treat me like a freak either.
God bless her. And I remember watching you walk down the halls at Cal State Northridge, and you used a cane.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember you said, what was it, the reason you can't use a seeing eye dog? You had said it was something to do with your fragility of your bones, I remember.
Yeah, so the training for a seeing eye dog is very intense.
Yes.
I'm in terrible shape, which is due in large part.
She's trying to grab some
exactly
some chips.
Exactly, to my eating habits. But even if I'd been the appropriate size for my height and age.
How tall are you? You are.
I'm 4'11".
Yeah, she's a tiny little thing.
Yeah, I'm 4'11". I'm an Oompa Loompa. So. But
yeah,
even if I had been the appropriate weight, the training is very intense, and it's a lot of walking.
Yes.
Even orientational mobility without a seeing eye dog. So that training for CSUN had me sore and in bed for 2 weeks.
Yes, I remember you. But you know what? You continue, and even at CSUN and even now with your students, to be a beacon of light, honestly. And like you said, thank God your mother had the wisdom and the understanding to deal with you in such a progressive manner, and to be, what an amazing influence to encourage your intellectual ability as well. Jessica always makes me feel like I have to study harder. In fact, a lot of our colleagues at Cal State Northridge are scared to death of her because she's formidable. But I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today, Jessica, and sharing this really, really, and at times difficult to discuss, but the beauty of your mother and who she was as a soul.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
And please remember, everyone, that you can hear The Last Thing I Wished I Said on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. So hopefully we'll rejoin the listening audience in the future. I have more interviews lined up. And thank you again, Jessica, for a wonderful half hour. Or has it been a half hour? It feels like 5 minutes.
No worries. Thank you for the opportunity.